What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they are 2 days away from taking on the Washington Commanders, a game that we are all waiting for because, man, it has felt like years since last time the Pittsburgh Steelers have played some football. We're diving into a pretty terrible setback for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, one that will affect them this week and could affect them moving forward. The NFL has made it known that the Pittsburgh Steelers made a massive mistake with Najee Harris. Now it's time to talk about how they can possibly fix it. Some analysts have some crazy things to say about these guys. We're diving into them, and it is Friday, so we are making our picks for Week 10, Pittsburgh Steelers, Washington Commanders. Nick, I want to say it's a good day. All days are good days. That's what I say, but today is less good than most because, I mean, you guys know as well as I do, we only give bad advertising on this show. Today's the day that Starbucks dropped, or I guess this month. I couldn't tell you when. I felt like I was at Starbucks yesterday and I was getting a pumpkin spiced latte. Today, I got some crappy pecan thing that I'm not a fan of. And that's where we are. Until next October, I will remain sad because there is no coffee like a pumpkin spice latte, and nobody wants this. But I hope you're doing better. How you feel, my friend?
Yeah, I can't say that I know how you feel, but I do feel for you because I know how much it means to you, the PSL season. And with that coming to an end, I know that that's hard on you. And I know it's been tough for you to kind of sit down and get ready for this podcast. So, I am so proud of you for braving it out and for sticking it out and jumping on the pod with me.
I appreciate it. It was a tough day. Called my wife immediately, told her while she was at work, she's teaching the youth. And I said, hey, look, I need you to walk away from these children right now because I need to vent. It's the day. And she knew exactly actually what I was talking about. I really did make that phone call, and I really did actually say today's the day. And she knew exactly what was going down. She said, you're at Starbucks, aren't you? I said, yeah. She said, I know. I was there earlier. Awful day, but that's okay. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're always here to cheer us up. Let's dive into some news that broke just a couple hours ago. The Pittsburgh Steelers released their final injury report of Week 10 against the Washington Commanders. And who was on it? A name that not many were expecting, a name that I thought was going to be removed from it, and we have been hyped up all week to see back on the field. Not anymore. Nick Herbig is ruled out for Week 10 with a hamstring injury. He was limited throughout the week, then did not practice on Friday, the day that you thought he would take a step forward and be a full participant. He actually goes backwards, and he does not participate. It's a tough day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't know what this means, how severe the setback is. You were hoping that after the bye week, that is when Nick Herbig was going to play. Now you're looking at it next week. But even then, you're looking at it going, a setback on Friday, that's never good. A lot of times this could lead to worse things than just this week. And if that is the case, the Pittsburgh Steelers could be in trouble. They could certainly be in trouble, but they have Preston Smith, who is going to have to jump on a moving train much faster than I think he or the Pittsburgh Steelers thought he was going to. We'll see him plenty on Sunday against the Commanders, and we'll also see some Jeremiah Moon. But no Nick Herbig for right now and maybe the foreseeable future, because we just don't know when he's going to come back. He said he was optimistic and feeling good. I have been told a number of times over the last 2 weeks that he is looking and feeling very good, to the point where the Steelers expected him to go this week against the Commanders. It seemed like it was all going that way, and then he takes a step backwards. How big of a blow is this for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I know they just added Preston Smith, but still a kid that in his second year was hopefully still has been, and you're hoping that you get it back again in this second half, taking a stardom step forward in 2024.
Yeah, obviously it's a massive blow because the reason that they went with 3 outside linebackers to start is because they trusted that Nick Herbig was going to be able to step up and be the main rotational piece. Now, of course, injuries to Highsmith and then, of course, to Herbig kind of created that need again, and they went out and got Preston Smith, and kudos to Omar Khan reacting in that way and making sure that he got a good player, but at the same time, you want to be able to run that 4 rotation that you did last year with Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig, and obviously the top 2 and TJ and Alex Highsmith. It's going to be hard whenever Herbig is struggling to get back onto the field. So not something you want to see, especially because we were getting excited because this was going to be the healthiest we had seen the Steelers since maybe week 1, but even in week 1, Isaac Seumalo was out with a pec injury. So this was going to be the healthiest we were going to see the Steelers, I think, to this point of the season. But unfortunately, another blow, and you're just hoping that it's not a Roman Wilson situation where it is so bad, in fact, that he needs to be placed on IR or something that extreme. So, I mean, thoughts go out to Nick Herbig, and hopefully he can get back on track and get ready for Ravens week in week 11.
Yeah, I agree. It is concerning. And that's where the Steelers stand is you don't want it to turn into Roman Wilson. You don't want it to turn into Corey Trice. And if that's the case, then you're in trouble. But I don't know. The fact that it's taken this long and then you're suffering a setback is not a good place to be. And hamstring injuries, these soft tissue injuries, they last so much longer than anything else. Because of that, you got to be a little bit worried if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan of what's to come within this injury. We'll see. We'll see. That's all we could do right now is wait and see. But for anybody who was thinking about wearing their Aaron Smith jerseys, break them out because there will be a lot of Preston Smith in this game. You will see him, TJ, and Alex Highsmith, which if you're going to find a positive here, it's that. It's that the Pittsburgh Steelers will get plenty of action for their new outside linebacker, but Nick Herbig suffers a pretty big setback and a massive blow for the Pittsburgh Steelers once again in week 10 against the Commanders. I want to jump to a different topic of conversation right now. One that I don't know. I look at and say we were pretty okay with the situation, even when it was gaining speed and looking like, okay, this guy is going to be something special this season. We were still okay with where everything stood. Something transpires, and now the whole NFL is looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, guys, you messed up. You messed up pretty big. And maybe you agree with it. Maybe you do not. Who knows? But for those of you who have not been paying attention, the Carolina Panthers the other day inked Chuba Hubbard to you have the details there. Something $33 million contract, 4 years, $33 million, I believe is the terms of service.
Yep. And $15 million fully guaranteed for Chuba Hubbard,
which comes out to just about $8 million a year, I would say, for a guy that, definitely impressive. Actually, I believe is above Najee Harris in rushing yards this season, if I remember our conversation correctly from a couple of days ago. Naji Harris's fifth-year option, $6.7 million. And the Steelers could have picked that up fully guaranteed and had their running back for another season. And at the time, you were thinking, I get it, but the running back market, it had its 1 year. Now it's going to go back down. This is a good move for the Steelers. It makes sense financially. We disagreed with it while saying it was okay. It wasn't the worst mistake if it turns out to be a mistake, because it probably wasn't the best move if you made it. And even if it turned out great, what's the ceiling of this situation? Well, there are two sides to the coin. Naji Harris is about to get paid, my friends. And for everybody who keeps asking me, is Naji Harris coming back in 2025? The answer is no, and remains no, and will continue to remain no, because Naji Harris is not coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to go get the bag somewhere, and he's going to get $10 million plus a year, and he's going to have a great time in some city not wearing black and gold. The Pittsburgh Steelers, on the other hand, now have a conversation to have. How do we replace Naji Harris? Because right now we look like losers in this situation. And I wrote a story yesterday, or actually I didn't write it. I helped create it with Jacob Penturi. Shout out Jacob Penturi on SI.com. That was titled "Steelers Look Like Losers in the Naji Harris Decision," because that's what they look like right now. But there is always next offseason. The Steelers will have to try to replace Naji Harris. And I think there are options to do so. Some good ones. Some both free agent and NFL draft guys that you can look at, that they probably will look at, to say this could be an option for Najee Harris. I'll ask you first. How down bad are the Pittsburgh Steelers right now? And does your mind change? Has your mind changed at all? Because you were, again, the thought was probably should have picked it up. Okay that they didn't. Has it changed at all now that a guy that, I mean, I'm sorry, but Naji Harris is better than, is inking deals for pretty cheap?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it looks pretty bad on the Steelers that they didn't pick up this option. We had talked about it and said it's okay that they didn't, but it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yes.
I mean, we were trying to see the kind of the thought process behind it, but it was okay. You can sign him to a 5th-year option for $6-7 million. That's what you would hope to be paying him now. That would be a steal now if you could get him for that next year. So at this point, the Steelers do look bad and not getting him and not signing him to that 5th-year option. And like you said, I feel like by the day, by the game, by the carry, he is just making more and more money on that next contract. And more than likely, that next contract's not coming in Pittsburgh. It would be nice to see him come back for a hometown discount, but at the same time, running backs of this era know that they need to get their money when they can. And I don't fault Najee for doing the same thing. If that takes him elsewhere, that's probably what's going to do. What he's going to do, it's going to take him elsewhere.
I get asked this. Everybody asks me this all the time. So I'll ask you, what's your percentage? Give me your percentage prediction on Najee Harris returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think I would put it at a clean 75, because I think there's a 25% chance if they go on a run, get close to a Super Bowl, and all parties say, you know what, let's run it back. And by run it back, we mean run it back as close to this formula as possible. I can see Najee saying, okay, maybe I take a little bit of a haircut, but I want to win a Super Bowl. And right now, the Steelers were the team that was close. That's the 25% that if they get going and Arthur Smith can talk to him and say, listen, look at the year you just had. It's going to be better next year because our offensive line is going to have more cohesion. Our young offensive linemen are going to have, better, a little bit more experience, and you're going to have a more secured and defined quarterback position. Because at that point, they'll know. At that point, it will be undeniable which direction that they need to go. So if that all happens, that's why I leave such a high percentage. And I know it's weird saying 25 is high, but I leave that high percentage for Najee returning.
I feel like 25 is a good number. I do. I think that there is that opportunity. That 25 could also include the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, yeah, man, we messed up and we're going to make it even worse by re-signing you to a deal, or you franchise tag somebody, because you could franchise tag Naji Harris. I mean, you'd be nuts to franchise tag Naji Harris, but you can do it. I think the franchise tag will be like $12 million. Could you imagine? No, big no. But I do think that 25% is a decent spot. But there are fixes, and that's the important part here, is how do you fix it? And this is nothing against Najee. I don't think Najee is, I think he's replaceable, but I don't think you're going to go find another Najee. And I think that there is risk with all of these guys. Even the first guy I'll name, there is risk associated, because you just don't know if they turn out to be the same old reliable that you currently have on the roster. We'll start in the NFL draft. Ashton Jeanty is the easiest one you could possibly name. But the chances of Pittsburgh Steelers finding an Ashton Jeanty or finding Ashton Jeanty is slim to none. This guy's going to go top 15, almost undoubtedly, possibly higher. He could end up in, I mean, you're telling me that Jerry Jones is getting all this backlash for not going out and getting Derrick Henry, and they're going to finish in the top 10 of the draft, and he's not going to get Ashton, the Boise State kid. They're not going to go get the Boise State kid from Texas. I mean, Jerry Jones is all about keeping his team relevant. The best way to keep your team relevant is to get the crazy running back that could be the next Saquon Barkley or Jahmyr Gibbs or Derrick Henry or whoever it is. Chances are Ashton Jeanty is off the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Amari Hampton is a great name to watch. And to be honest with you, James Jones is a great name to watch. James Jones is a dude who works in a very fast offense, who, yes, is maybe not the ground and pound that Najee Harris is, but I think could be the zone running back that Najee Harris can. I mean, there are different types of zone rushing attacks. Kyle Shanahan runs a zone rushing attack. And Raheem Mostert, who's got no power, he's just the fastest man alive at all times, worked very fine in a zone rushing offense. I think you could find that. You know, people will say Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. I agree with you, but Derrick Henry is also much more of a 100%. But he's also a speed back, maybe more than he is a power back. Like, if you really look at it, Derrick Henry is a big man, scary to tackle. A lot of his rushes are he gets open and he takes off and he's outrunning everybody. You could utilize stuff like that. James Jones is certainly an option that I would appreciate for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think you could go deeper. And I apologize if I'm not looking at my screen, so if I'm freaking out, I apologize. But
you're good.
Brashad Smith is a great name out of SMU, who we just watched beat Pitt. You could go Khalil Mullings. You could go Caleb Johnson, which somebody tossed out there. I think it goes as deep as possibly Travion Henderson. I really do. I think you could get Travion Henderson out of Ohio State and feel pretty good. That's a power back. That's a guy he's going to hit you. He's going to punch you right in the face and feel pretty okay about it. Dylan Sampson could also be on there, but I'm not as high on Dylan Sampson, I would be totally honest with you, as I am some of these other guys. There are options, and options in both sides. You know, you want to go speed, you want to go Jordan James, you want to go Brashad Smith, you want to go power, you want to go Omarion Hampton, you want to go Caleb Johnson, you want to go a guy like Khalil Mullings out of Michigan. There are names. Then there are the free agents, and I'm excited for this list. I'm going to do this off the cuff. Excuse me. Hit me with the names to replace Naji Harris in free agency.
Yeah, I think we did this once before, and the first name is always very comical. James Conner is the top free agent according to Spotrac at the running back position.
What's the percentage of James Conner coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Higher or lower than Naji Harris?
I was going to say 0.5. 0.5%. I don't think James Conner is coming back to Pittsburgh. I don't think that ends up happening.
Okay.
But outside of James Conner, the other free agents, Aaron Jones, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Zeke Elliott, Alex Madison, and then let me see if there's any other interesting names here. J.K. Dobbins having a really good year in L.A. We'll see whether or not he gets re-signed. Rico Dowdle having himself something.
Yeah, could be a name to watch
in Dallas as well. So there's names on this list, but again, how many starting caliber names there are? Only about 5 or 6.
I'll toss this out there. Aaron Jones is a name that intrigues me a lot on that list because he's a veteran. He knows how to do this. He's good when he's healthy. You could bring in our back, Jaylen Warren. You can go get a rookie in the NFL draft and then sign Aaron Jones. I don't think he's going to be expensive because he's probably just about 30 years old, which would work pretty well. J.K. Dobbins would be good, but he's going to get re-signed in L.A., and I mean, I like J.K. Dobbins a lot, but this is the first year he's ever healthy, and we're only halfway through the season. Can you read off the list again after Aaron Jones? There was another name. It was not A.J. Dillon.
Was it Nick Chubb or Javonte Williams?
Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. Javonte Williams came out when the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted Naji Harris, and everybody and their mother was telling you that Naji Harris was going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Everybody and their mother was telling you this. Javonte Williams was that number 2. It was not Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne was not ending up in Pittsburgh. It was either going to be Naji Harris or Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams, when healthy, is good. And he runs very well. But the Denver Broncos are not going to keep him around because they're not going to be able to afford him, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to be able to afford Naji Harris. The difference is that you're probably not signing Naji Harris for under $10 million. You might sign Javonte Williams to a 1-year, maybe a 2-year, $8 million a year deal and feel pretty okay about that situation. What's the max? What's your number that you'd sign a running back to? All of them. It doesn't matter who it is. What's the max?
I mean, again, that list is a list of names. Certainly, I think there's only 4 or 5 that would be worth getting, especially if you're trying to replace a guy like Naji Harris. Not that anybody's going to be a 1-for-1 replacement, but you need to at the very least get somewhere near that level. I would personally prefer to go NFL draft because I think there's enough names.
I agree
that you could get somebody in the 3rd round. But if I am sticking to, hey, I'm going free agency class, I'm not going above that $7-8 million mark. I think that's even high. I think that unless you're getting a Nick Chubb, unless you're getting, a James Conner back, which again, I put very little stock into that, then I think you're probably around $6 million. Because if that was the case, you should have just, as we started this conversation, you should have just picked up Najee's 5th-year option.
They should have done that in the first place, but they didn't.
Yeah. It's hard to not go back to that.
It's very hard to not go back to that. And no matter what they do, the end result will be this is a mistake.
Yeah.
The end result to this will be the Steelers messed up. They had the option. They messed up the option. But they're going to have to do something. And I like the NFL draft if you could get it. The problem is, and I get it, it's a loaded draft class at running back, but it's also a loaded draft class at running back right now and not, 6 months from now when it really matters, when they go through the medicals and when college football season's over and you see what happens during the combine and so on and so forth. That's when you'll really know. And you're not going to get an Ashton Genty. And that is that's the guy, besides that, you're going second, third round. Okay, great. Maybe it works out, but maybe it doesn't, and maybe it works out, but maybe it works out in a year and not this first season, because that's the other part of this is that rookie running backs almost never have that crazy season anymore. It feels very unlikely that's the case. I mean, Naji Harris had that crazy season and people raved about how this dude's it. This is it. Naji Harris is the guy right here. And then he slowly took a step back. But even Jahmyr Gibbs last year, impressive. Not Jahmyr Gibbs this year. Not even close. And I think that's where the risk you'd be taking. Whereas, and you could go get it. I'm telling you, Javonte Williams is a name. That is a name to watch. The Steelers liked Javonte Williams. I think if he didn't go to North Carolina, there was a better shot he ended up in Pittsburgh, because they would have been very okay with it. If Najee Harris wasn't in the draft, Javonte Williams would have been a Steeler. He would have. If he made it. I think he went 33 or something. But if there was some alternate universe where he slid to that second-round pick, the Steelers would have taken him, and they would have felt good about it. I'd go Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones. These are guesses. But educated guesses. Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, Jordan James seems like a name, but to be honest with you, if I'm going to be just hey, who's the realistic guy for the Steelers? It's Khalil Mullings, excuse me. I mean, you're going to hand Mike Tomlin a 230-pound running back and say that's not his guy. That's his guy. Hey, let's replace Naji Harris with this guy that looks like Naji Harris, goes to the school that we go to every single year for pro days, and is a big, massive, scary dude. And I would say those would be my top 3 guesses for the Pittsburgh Steelers to replace Naji Harris. Mm-hmm. Do any of them have potential to be Naji Harris? That's a good question. That is the bottom line question. Do any of them have potential to be Naji Harris next season? Not in the future, next season.
No, I don't think they do. I don't think any of them can get to that level. Now, of those 3, which one's the most likely? Probably Khalil Mullings, because there's more on that bone, right? We know what Javonte Williams is, maybe in a different system, maybe another year removed from that massive knee injury. Maybe he is closer to that. And Aaron Jones is what Aaron Jones is at this point. Yeah. And it's not bad, but it's not going to be what you're getting out of Najee Harris. I think if you're trying to get carbon copy or closest to, I think you have to go get a guy like Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. I think you have, because he's 227 pounds already as well. So you go out and get a guy like that, and that's going to be the closest you're going to get with a little bit more room to grow on it out of the running back position next year, whether that's in free agency or that's in the draft. And if he does come out, I do like Quinshon Judkins. He was very good last weekend in Happy Valley, but he's also a junior. And sometimes with the new NIL deals, maybe he goes back because he's like, well, I'm going to make just as much money and I'm going to play on a good Ohio State team that has a chance to go win a national championship. So if he comes out, I like Judkins as well.
What about Devin Neal out of Kansas?
I'm not going to lie. I haven't watched a lot of Kansas Jayhawk football.
So college football has gotten me into random teams because you play Road to Glory and nobody's like, oh, I'm going to Michigan. You're like, no, I'm going to Northwestern. I'm about to carry this team. And Neal's a dude that you go to Kansas and he's pretty damn good. So you start looking into tape. My brain works in weird ways. I will play college football while watching Kansas highlights on the side. That's what you could. This is a real thing that goes down the track by an household. That's probably how I'll spend my Friday night, if we're going to be very honest. And it'll be a good time. He'd be a name to watch. Final question I have for you before we dive into our picks and our regular questions here. What's the top dollar amount you'd pay for Najee Harris? If the season ended today, what's the top dollar amount you'd pay for Najee Harris?
If the season ended today, so that's without the results of how this plays out, right? How it all comes together whenever Russell Wilson goes up against somebody that's not a New York team.
Yes.
I'm probably still stuck around that Chuba Hubbard contract right there. Because if they go on a run and Najee is the spearhead, which we all expect him to be because that's what he's been the last 3 weeks, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to grit my teeth and pay you $9 million because I really want you. But like, I wouldn't go as high as 10. I would stick at 9 is the ceiling.
Okay. If they go to the AFC Championship game,
9.
What's your top dollar? $9 million.
Yeah.
If they win no playoff games,
8. Like that's the Chuba Hubbard effect there. That's where I'm looking at that and saying, you see what he got paid? He got overpaid. That's what you're worth. And I know that's not how negotiations work because Harris's client is going to be like, he played for the worst team in the NFL. Come on now. But no, I would go 9. And if they go on a run here and actually are able to show that he is a centerpiece to a team that could win in the postseason.
Okay. I like that. I think 9 would be, I think I'd have an okay time pushing it to 10 on a 2-year deal. 2-year, $20 million, like, I don't know, $15 million guaranteed, something crazy like that. And then that's it. Maybe 12, maybe $10 million guaranteed, 1 year guaranteed. That's what I think I'd push it to that. I wouldn't go 3-year. At that point, you're pushing 30 years old. Chances are you're not the same running back that you are today. Chances are the Steelers are not the same team that they are today. Chances are you had a shot. You have a shot in the next 3 years at a guy like Ashton Genty somewhere along the way that you would rather add than keep Naji Harris. And that's what you'd be looking for. I think I could push it to 10. If they make it to the AFC Championship game, I'd go 10.
Okay.
But I'd also potentially be reluctant to say that because like you got to get better. You're only here. You're trying to be here. How do you get there? Maybe it's Najee Harris. It's a mistake either way. The Steelers messed up.
Yeah.
Hate to admit it, but the Steelers messed up. That's where we are. There are names to watch to replace him. They're not the easiest names, but the Pittsburgh Steelers certainly have names to go out there and add another running back sometime soon to replace number 22, potentially with number 22. And none of that includes Jaylen Warren or Cordero Patterson, who will most likely both be on the roster next year. Where we stand here, Jaylen may be a little bit more of a question mark than Cordero, obviously, who has a multi-year contract, but still potentially both of them on the roster. What's the chances that it's Cordero Patterson and 2 totally different running backs?
I feel like that's unlikely. I don't think that they would let both Jaylen and Najee walk. I think that they would, if they can't get anything done with Najee, I think that's going to up their kind of intensity in re-signing Jaylen. Not to mention, we talk about Najee kind of making more money as the season goes on. Yeah. Jaylen has kind of fallen short of expectations. A lot of that is due to injury. So don't make I don't want it to sound like I'm like saying he's taken a step back, but that injury really kind of slowed his progression this season. And he really hasn't done what we kind of expected him to do, because we all thought he's going to take that next step. It's going to be 50-50. We were talking preseason. Could Jaylen Warren end up with more touches than Naji Harris? The injury changed the entire kind of atmosphere around that. And Najee stepping up the way he has changed everything to being, it's not 1A, 1B. It is Najee is the bell cow. And whenever they need that change of pace, that's Jaylen. Whereas before we thought it was going to be more of a mix.
I agree. I think it is it's more likely than it was, but unlikely simply because you're just going to tender Jaylen and say, yeah, come on, pal. We're going to see it one more time. And if it doesn't work out, we'll go in a different direction. Either way, you're reliable, and we're going to stick with reliable. All right, we're going to dive into our Week 10 picks and answer all of your questions. We got some real good ones in the chat, actually. Very excited for them. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our boys over at DraftKings. If you're as dedicated to your football team as I am, you've got to check out my partners, DraftKings Sportsbooks. With options to bet on your favorite team, favorite players, props, and more, there's something for everyone. And right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Now that's something to celebrate this season. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. With that said, we're diving into our Week 10 picks. Pittsburgh Steelers, Washington Commanders. It's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a good one. We had some people, we were supposed to talk, Mike Florio saying Jane Daniels, welcome to the NFL moment game here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, maybe that kid knows how to avoid pressure though. And I think breaking your ribs or whatever he did a couple of weeks ago was you're welcome to the NFL moment. So I don't know if he could come twice, but I don't know if I'm super in on a blowout this weekend for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That being said, I'm full of surprise, and you never know. I usually make these things as we go along. So I'll toss it to you. Week 10, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Washington Commanders at Northwest Field, which is the worst name for a stadium on the planet. You could have named it you could have just named it Washington Stadium. Beautiful. But instead you went Northwest Stadium. Trash. With that said, let's make our picks. What do we got?
Yeah, the line on DraftKings right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers as 3-point underdogs to the Washington Commanders on the road. The over-under sits at 45, so much higher than it was against both the New York teams. But once again, Steelers underdogs by a field goal.
Wow. It was 2. Went down to 3, which means they're betting. People are making moves on this one. I mean, this one's easy. This is not... The Steelers are going to lose some games, okay, in the second half. They're not going to go perfect in the second half. They're not going to be flawless. They're going to come out of the bye. They're going to have some hiccups. I agree. I don't think they're going to lose to the Commanders because at the end of the day, this is if this was the other way around, okay, and this was 2 dominant defenses against 2 really bad offenses, I could, as painful as this is to say, I could say something like the Steelers defense could blank out on this one and really give up the game. We've seen it. We've seen it too many times to say that isn't a possibility. But this is the other way around. This is 2 very hit or miss right now defenses against 2 performing pretty well offenses. And in that battle, I give the hand to Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson ain't going to fall. Russell Wilson ain't going to trip. He's not going to stumble a little bit. He's going to keep his offense exactly where they need to be because that's what he does. That's why Russell Wilson is here, so that the offense never has that game where you go, what the heck is going on right now? Not with Russell Wilson there. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers take this one. I'm feeling good about the Pittsburgh Steelers taking this one. I don't think it's a blowout. I don't think it's a big, massive, crazy game. I do think they hit the over on the 25.5. Is that what it was? Or
the over under was 45.
45.5. 45 flat. Yes. 23-23 game. Easy. I do think you hit the over on the 45. I still think the Steelers win, but I could see it going the other way. I'm going to go 26. I'm going to go 26. Again, they scored 26 last week, so they're not going to do that again. I'm going 27.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to go twice. I'm going 27 to 21. Pittsburgh Steelers. A closer game than 6 points says it is. A closer game than 6 points says it is. I think the Steelers defense comes out slow and slacking a little bit. But I think Washington's defense is terrible. and has nothing to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers run attack and nothing to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers pass game. And because of that, they're going to score some points. So it'll be on the defense to stop them. I think they could come up with at least one of them to stop it from going to 27. 27-21 is my guess here. And this is we already know Naji Harris over 188 yards. So this is a big round game for Naji Harris. 27-21 is my pick.
Yeah, I like your picking for those who were waiting to see if Noah would pick against the Steelers for the first time this year.
No.
Think again. You've made it to week 10, double digits, and you've picked the Steelers every week. I love it.
Every single week. Yeah, but they're 6-2. They haven't had the game to lose yet.
I mean, that's why you're 6-2 on these picks, and I'm 4-4.
Exactly. You look at the end of the day, even the front half, there was not the game to pick. There wasn't. Yeah. Like, you weren't going to bet that they lost against the Colts. Nobody was going to pick that game. Nobody's going to be like the Dallas Cowboys, man, which you did, I think. I think you did. You did. But at the time, looking back now, that looks like an even crazier pick than it was at the time. But they didn't have the game to lose. We will have the game to lose. People will hate me for a moment when I pick the Chiefs or I pick the Browns to win in Cleveland or something crazy like that. But for right now, the Commanders. We're going 7-2 riding with the Steelers against the Commanders.
Alrighty, I like it. Sticking to your guns. I do have to follow you on that one though, because I'm gonna stick with the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. I mean, Mike Tomlin after a bye, historically very good. I mean, we talked about that for Monday Night Football, and was it pretty? No, it wasn't pretty. But guess what? Mike Tomlin won on Monday Night Football at home, as he tends to do. Yes. So Mike Tomlin after a bye in his career, 13-4. Now, I understand they're going up against a really good Commanders team, a really dynamic offense. I believe the exact quote from Cam Hayward was lightning in a bottle when describing Jaden Daniels. I don't think they slow that down a lot. I really do think that Jaden Daniels is going to be able to go out there and do what he's been doing to every single team he's faced this season. I think the defense is going to put up more of a fight than we've seen from certain teams, aka the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens, because we all watched that game last week. But I do think
go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry,
you're right.
Yesterday, not last week.
I was gonna say yesterday. You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt you. You want to hear something crazy? Locked myself out of the house again yesterday during the game.
You gotta stop doing that.
I know.
Stop.
I know. It's first
get
thing
a brick. Get a brick and be like,
no, you can't get a brick. I live in the city of Pittsburgh, man. We had the conversation of somebody literally trying to get in the house the day before. Can't do it. But last night it was like 10:30 at night last night, and I just click, and the wife was with me too. We were both outside, and we both looked at each other and went, "You got your phone?" And she went, "No." And I said, "Yeah, me neither, actually."
Straight to the window.
Thanks. No. But thankfully the neighbor came home, and we got to call an in-law this time. But it was bad. It was bad. It was a good time. All right, go ahead.
All that to say, Pittsburgh Steelers 34, Washington Commanders 24. I see 4 touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. I think that the Commanders defense just is not going to have answers for Najee Harris and that ground game. And I think the Steelers are going to put up a lot of points down in Northwest Field, whatever. Bad field name for one of probably the worst fields in the NFL. We're just hoping they make a new one and it's named something better.
No, it's going to be another terrible name and another terrible field, because that's
they got new ownership. I think they've done well to this point.
No, not well enough. Not well enough. I like that. 34-24 is a name, or is a score that, I mean, feels like a blowout to me. You beat the Washington Commanders by 10. That's a big win for Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Could see it happening though. Could definitely see it happen. I mean, everybody in the comments is saying that this is a 30-pointer. This is another 30 burger for the Steelers. That wouldn't surprise me. Would at any point this season, going into the season, would you have guessed that the Pittsburgh Steelers would be if they do it, on a 4-game streak of 25+ points with 3 games over 30?
No, I probably would not have predicted
Never in my life I would have bet everything I had against that.
Yeah, I had a lot of faith in Arthur Smith, but I don't know if I had that much faith to where we could go from what we saw last year to what we're seeing right now, which is a not just competent, but actually pretty good offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy. that this is where we have come and how far the Pittsburgh Steelers have come on the offensive side of the football. But I mean, hey, you hire good coaches, you get some good quarterbacks, and you really do some stuff. That's what happens. I love it. 34-24 you. I'm going 27-21 this time around for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what happens. We'll see how close we get. With that said, let's answer your questions as we do every single day. Make sure to toss them in the chat. We'll get to as much of them as we can before we head out of here. Nick, what do we got?
All right, well, we just gave our predictions, but Cody wants to know, does this change anything in your opinion? Jaden Daniels has went 18 of 35 inside the 10-yard line. Does the fact of our defense playing phenomenal in that area and their kicker being injured play a role into your score predictions? Also, number 39 interception.
We're really on the Minka train here. I'm hoping he gets one. I think we're going to have to have a little celebration if he does get one at some point this season. The kicker does make me nervous. The inside the red zone, the Commanders are not the best. They've had moments. They've had really good moments, but they've also had bad moments. The crazier part is that I'm pretty sure I want to say 11 of 11 on 3rd and 4th down this season, which is absolutely nuts. But they get the job done when they can. This week, I don't expect them to as much. The Steelers defense is not the hottest defense in football right now, but they will stop you from scoring. They will, because that's what they do. They get you into the red zone, and then they say, okay, you're not going to score. And you could ask Terrell Austin, you could ask Mike Tomlin, you could ask guys on that defense. They'll all tell you the same thing. They'll say, yeah, our performance needs to be better, but at least we're not letting them score. And that's a win. That's a pretty big win. So I do feel that it plays into this. Not having your starting kicker certainly plays into this. Not that I don't think any kicker in the NFL could come in here and make some kicks and hit some field goals, especially that close to the goal line. But it does play a role. And I think that the Steelers will have their opportunities to make this a 10-point game plus, because they will be able to shut down the Commanders in the red zone.
Let's jump over to Steven, who says, with no Marshawn Lattimore plus a Williams and Pickens combination, it equals a massive respect win for the Steelers on Sunday afternoon. I
do see that. I'm going to say it at some point during the show. The Commanders defense. I don't know why I think it's because we talked about the Northwest being a terrible thing and now they have new ownership. And now my head is just going, Dan Snyder definitely would have named it Dan Snyder Stadium. 100%. You know what I mean? That's where my head is right now, is just making fun of him. The Commanders defense as a whole, I don't know how they're 6-2 with this defense, because if you go and watch it, there are no they got that guy. They got that. They don't have the guy anywhere. They have nobody to really shut down George Pickens. They don't have the safeties that are going to be able to help over the top. I mean, Jeremy Chin, cool, but definitely past his prime. There's just nobody to, as you say, shut these guys down outside of Marshawn Lattimore. And I didn't expect him to play a whole ton of snaps in this one. That being said, I don't expect Mike Williams to play a whole ton of snaps in this one. George Pickens could have a massive game. That's certainly a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one.
Steven also dropped this one in the comment section saying, would they bring Najee Harris back if he's responsible for the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl in overtime? Hypothetically, but potentially possible.
What a rundown. If Najee Harris is responsible for the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl in overtime, does he come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Not if he wants over $10 million. He doesn't. And I would imagine his price tag goes through the roof. Here's the thing. If the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year, nobody's coming back. Nobody's coming back. You're going to just, everybody's going to get a payday. Najee Harris is getting a massive payday. You're looking at guys like Justin Fields is going to get a massive payday. Even being on the bench, a massive payday. You're going to look at Russell Wilson, and teams are going to be calling Russell Wilson, trying to get him to go wherever, or the Steelers are going to have to pay him a boatload of money. Mike Williams is going to go get paid. There are going to be names. Dan Moore is going to go get paid. There are going to be names everywhere that get massive deals, because that's what comes with contract or with Super Bowl teams. I mean, I would say no. I would try. but I would imagine his price tag gets even higher if he does that.
Let's go over to Jordan Rogers, who says Strack Attack and Belskinator. I got a parlay with Najee over 65 yards, Najee 1 touchdown, Jaden Daniels 1 interception, Steelers over 2.5 sacks, and last pick is a Bo Nix over under of 25.5 rush yards. Do you go over or under the Bo Nix one?
Who the Bo of all of them to ask me about? You're gonna ask me about the
one
Nix
that is nothing to do with this game.
Strack Attack and the Belskinator. I love it. All right, so Najee over 65 yards. I like that one. Najee over a touchdown. I like that one. Daniels and INT. I mean, I said Cam Sutton's getting one, so I don't mind that one. Over 2.5 sacks. I like that one too. I don't even know who the Broncos are playing. To be very honest with you, I don't know who. I don't know who the Broncos are. I'm gonna say
They're playing
over.
the Chiefs.
Oh.
On the road.
Yeah. I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over. I'm giving you bad advice here, but I'm gonna go over. I would ask somebody else. You should ask Thursday, because I would hit up Big Don tomorrow and said, yo, pal, Bo Nix over under 25.5 rushing yards. I'm gonna go over. You're probably gonna run a lot.
Alrighty, let's jump over to Steven, who says, looking at that Ravens defense last night, is there anything we need to be worried about going into next week's game in week 11?
Yeah, how bad the Ravens defense is. How about that?
You worried about that?
No. I'd be worried if I was the Ravens. Look at Marlon Humphreys is a stud. And I think a lot of people thought he was at the end of his career. He's definitely not. He's still going. But if he doesn't exist, I mean, there is nothing. There's nothing there. They do not win football games if it's not for. That's twice this season that he has gone out there and won a football game for them. I'm almost positive both times against the Bengals. I think it's both times against the Bengals. He's gone out there and won a game for them, and nobody else has done it. That defense is so bad. It's so bad. Them losing Mike McDonald is rough, and it is really playing a toll or taking a toll on them. There's not much about that worries me, to be honest. I think you could avoid Humphrey and feel pretty okay.
Even on that last drive, I know that the main reason the Bengals went right down the field was penalties, but that's because the Ravens had no other discourse but to try to cheat and hope there weren't flags thrown. And it's what happened on the 2-point conversion. It just happened to work out for them. But that's what they had to do to try to stop the Bengals, is try to get as close to the line as possible. And a lot of those times they went over it, but that's what they had to do against not T. Higgins. Ja'Marr Chase went off for like 280 yards. But they also got kind of carved up by Andre Yoshivas. They got carved up by Mike Gesicki as well. So like, I think the Steelers are lined up pretty well to go up against that team. And the good thing is, I think the Steelers have the best combination in the AFC North. That's my main takeaway from yesterday. The Steelers have the best combination of offense and defense in the AFC North. The Browns are all defense, no offense. And both the Bengals and the Ravens are all offense, very minimal defense.
Yes, I agree. I look at the Baltimore Ravens were in my top 5 power rankings in week 9. They will probably be maybe 10 and definitely behind the Steelers if the Steelers win in week 11, because they are a team going down while a team like the Steelers and even the Bengals are going up.
Yeah, even at 4-6. Let's go over to Thomas, who says, do you think the Najee situation might have been the Steelers saying, hey, we're in win now mode, meaning they wanted Najee to push himself in a contract year and possibly get the Steelers to an AFC title game plus?
Yeah, I do think that. I do think there was some motivation behind it. I believe that. I believe that they really, truly wanted to see if he fits in this new offense. I believe all of that. It's coming back to bite them in the butt, because I don't think that they thought it was going to. And here it is. It's working out just fine. And he looks great. But I believe that. I believe that it had to do with trying to motivate him and keep him focused, and at the same time see if he really does fit. And all those answers are yes.
Have you ever seen Home Improvement, Noah?
Oh, yeah. I used to watch that all the time.
I'm starting to feel like Wilson down here with the cutoff right at the bridge of my nose.
You do feel like Wilson. You do look like Wilson.
I don't know why I just made that connection, but I had to bring it up. But yeah, definitely feeling like Wilson in the corner.
I actually do stare at that little spot every time you ask a question. I just stare at the little eyes in the nose.
Well, let's keep it rolling here because I know this one's going to cover me. Oh, maybe not the whole way.
Maybe
Let's go
not.
to Steeler Lee, who says, I know it's always been said that the Steelers are great at drafting wide receivers. Could the same be said about drafting running backs? Willie Parker, who was an undrafted free agent, not even a draft pick, but also Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, and now Najee Harris.
Yes, you could say yes and no. You could say yes and no. They have their trends. The problem, it's got to be in the first 3 rounds. That's what we've noticed because Anthony McFarland was a 4th round pick. Jalen Samuels was a 5th round pick. Nah. But there are some guys earlier that have definitely worked out and that they've turned into quite really good running backs. Actually, I think more so recently it's Eddie Faulkner. It's getting a guy like Eddie Faulkner in here to just really take over that running back room, and he's doing a really good job with it. That's why you're seeing guys like Jaylen Warren just come out of nowhere and do some things, and Cordero Patterson kind of revive his career at running back and that kind of stuff.
Let's go over to Chris P, who says, does George Pickens go over 100 receiving yards this weekend and nab 2 touchdowns?
2 touchdowns is a lot of touchdowns. I'm gonna say maybe an overreaction there with the 2 touchdowns. I feel good about the 100 yards. I could see 2 touchdowns, but I don't know. I think there's a possibility there. Again, they just don't have the cornerback depth to stop a guy like George Pickens. They just don't, and they don't have the safety help over the top. And if Mike Williams actually does make an impact in this game, which I don't anticipate him doing, but if he does, that's a whole other monster that a team has to pay attention to and try to shut down. I'm going to say the possibility is there for sure. Likelihood, I don't know. 2 touchdowns is a lot, but I would say the possibility is definitely there.
Let's go to our guy, Unlimited Moonballs, who says, how does our red zone efficiency improve? I feel like that is now our one and only weakness on the offensive side of the football.
That and right tackle, certainly. But I agree. That being said, the Giants were a bad red zone performance. That was a bad red zone performance. But the week before against the Jets, you score twice, I believe, in the red zone that ended up being field goals, which is a totally different game if it's that way. Russ is pretty efficient in the red zone, and I do expect him to turn that on at some point to really make it work. But at the end of it all, what makes your red zone efficiency improve is Naji Harris. Can Naji pound it in from 5-6 yards out? Like, can he be that guy that you hand him the football right up the middle and just know that he's going to score a touchdown? He could do that in the middle of the field. He'll carry 7 guys for 5 yards. You got to be able to do that near the end zone when it's 11 guys, which is much easier said than done. But you do have to do that. And I think Naji is the reason that the red zone efficiency would improve. I just anticipate it does because Russ is pretty good near the goal line.
Let's go over to Cody Silva, who says, with a backup kicker, do you think we'll have a field goal or extra point block on Sunday? Their left and right tackles are also injured.
That is very true. I'll toss. I don't know about that. Potentially. I mean, I feel like that is always on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Always on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll toss this at you. I'm gonna guess that we get a special teams trick play going on from the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. And I'm not gonna say I don't know anything. I'm just got a hunch that I feel like this might be the week. But I mean with the kicker, especially that you just brought in on a Friday to the practice squad, he's going to go out there on Sunday most likely and play. That's 2 days of kicking. You probably got like 50 balls to work with a long snapper and a holder. It could mark trouble. It could certainly mark trouble for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers or against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's go over to X Concepts with that in mind, who says, do you think Mike Williams gets an early play action deep shot on Sunday?
I do. I see the Steelers saying, we're going to welcome the fan base and everybody else to Mike Williams super early and say, here you go, pal. Have a good time. I don't know if it's going to work, but I do think that Mike Williams gets a deep shot early in the football game just to say, here he is, pal. Let's see what happens. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, who knows? But I would guess yes.
We got another Mike Williams question here from Sajan, who says, do you think Mike Williams will give GP a run for leading the team in yards from week 10 to the end of the season?
No, no, he will not. I don't think he'll come close. I don't. George Pickens is the guy. He plays like the guy. He is the guy. And you're going to remain using him as the guy because that's what the offense is built on. The offense is still built around getting George Pickens as many targets as they can in the passing game because that's your best weapon. And on top of that, George Pickens is still going to be open. He's still going to catch insane balls, and he's still going to make crazy plays. So this one's a no. And I think an easy no, to be honest.
We did have the comparison between Mike Williams and Deontay Johnson. Johnson on the board. 1 catch for 6 yards yesterday, late in that second quarter, and then of course the other target he fell. So that
he did, and then he had 3 more reps.
Yeah, that was it. So Williams is down by 6. That's what he has to beat him in week 10.
Oh, wait, are we going what? Are you going Deontay Johnson and Mike Williams comparison?
That was a what's more likely. Yesterday. We said,
I thought we were going off this comment at first. I thought that's what you were talking. I was like, hold up, pal. Am I reading this wrong? Did I just go on the wrong
Mike
rant?
Williams GP, which
Mike Williams.
You answered, and I said, you know what? We talked about it yesterday. 6 yards, 6-0 is 6
yards. And already Deontay dropped a cryptic tweet today, and I got a message from our Ravens guy. I said, welcome to the land of wide receivers, my friend. We have all of them. They're a fun time.
Let's go over to Dalton, who says, if you were the Steelers general manager, would you retain Larry Ogunjobi?
This stinks to say because I don't want it to come out as any type of negative towards Larry Ogunjobi, but no, I wouldn't. I think the Steelers' run defense has been for seasons now. Larry O is great, but his impact kind of has waves to it. I think you could replace Larry Ogunjobi for probably less, or at least a younger version of Larry Ogunjobi. And again, it's nothing negative against Larry O. I think he's a stud. I think he deserves to be the starter in Pittsburgh, all of it. But if you could go out and get somebody, and that's how I would approach it, is I would let Larry O hit free agency, see what his market is, see what the market looks like, and then go from there. Because if there are other options, you go with another option that you think could improve this team longer than right now. If not, Larry O's a good option for another 1, maybe 2-year deal. But I would say probably not. I wouldn't retain him.
All right, let's close it out with this one from Austin. How do the Steelers manage their cornerback room as it's looking crowded with adding Sutton and then possibly Trice soon as well? Does somebody end up getting waived?
Somebody will end up getting waived, but it'll probably be like CJ Henderson or James Pierre, one of those guys. How you will handle it is simple. Sutton won't play on the outside. It'll still be Corey Trice coming off the bench behind Dante Jackson and Joey Porter Jr. Cam Sutton is going to play the dime. That's where he's going to start. That's where he's going to spend most of his time. He'll fill in for Beanie Bishop from time to time, and he'll also play some safety when needed, that kind of stuff. But for right now, it's only going to be the dime backer. That's probably the only thing that the Steelers will look at it and say, this is where you'll start and you'll grow from here, because they don't want to disrupt a crowded room. Corey Trice is a good part of this room when healthy, and the Steelers are going to hope that when he comes back, which hopefully is soon, that he's healthy again. Until then, it'll be Cam, but once Trice comes back, he'll be in there, and then Cam will kind of fill in everywhere else. I don't expect Cam to play much on the outside once Corey Trice does return.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work on si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back on Monday, but don't forget that there are plenty of clips and the walkover coming on Sunday. Enjoy the game and another beautiful weekend in the Berg. Peace.